Hi, it's been a couple of days since I got back from my wonderful trip to Costa Rica and Mexico. And while I was away, I completed this this sketchbook. And I wanted to take you through some of the sketches I did and show you some of the different techniques I used to capture the sights and the smells and the sounds of Central America. My name's Liz Chatterton. I'm a watercolour artist based in Berkshire, and every week I try and share a tip, trick or technique that I wish I'd known about ages ago. So I've just been in Central America for 3 weeks and I'd love to share this sketchbook with you. But just before we do that, quick reminder of what I took with me. If you want to see the whole film and why I chose these, I'll put a link in the description. I took 3 lots of colour sheets from Viviva, and I took this little set of watercolour pans, and I did use all those. The only thing I didn't use at all was that Posca pen for highlighting. Didn't use it once. And after I'd made that film I've just told you about, I suddenly thought, do you know, I might put the pens in. And it's a grey set of watercolour markers that have got a bullet point one end and a brush pen the other end. I'm so glad I put them in because they were really good for shading and adding tone. Everything else I used, and I only managed to lose one thing, which was a fine liner. I took 2 and I've managed to lose 1. So here is my completed concertina sketchbook. I showed you in that first film just the way I sort of break my sketchbook in by sketching out some of my materials. Right, let's take you through. And what I'll do is show you this and then just show you very quickly a couple of the techniques I used. So this is San Jose, the capital of Costa Rica. And yeah, it's not the prettiest of places. There's a lot of real kind of brutalist 1960s, 70s architecture against, at the street level, something a bit more colourful. Anyway, my very first sketch, I went to the Plaza de las Artes, so the art square, and there is in fact a statue of John Lennon in this square, which is kind of odd. And I wanted to capture that sort of juxtaposition of very modern, pretty ugly architecture and the more street level, lively sort of architecture, and that's why I did it. Tried to keep everything in here under half an hour because I was travelling with my husband and it's his holiday too, and it's not fair if I spend ages. So these are quick sketches, some considerably quicker. One of the great places we went to was the Museo del Oro, so that's the Gold Museum, full of absolutely beautiful gold artifacts, all the things that basically survived the Spanish invasion and conquest. Lovely frog ornaments, crocodiles, and I just stood and sketched with my, I think I used my fine liner, ballpoint fine liner, just to sketch outlines. And then afterwards, when we were having a nice cup of coffee, I used my little Viviva gold colour sheets to add the colour. And funnily enough, we were in the National Theatre coffee shop, which is really beautiful. It's got lovely frescoes on the ceiling, and I was doing this as we were waiting for our coffee, and a lady came over and said, "What are you doing?" in Spanish. And in my bad Spanish, I tried to show her, and in her bad English, she tried to ask some questions, and between us, with our bad English, bad Spanish, a bit of Spanglish, as I now know it's called, I told her about these and she took some photos. So hopefully Viviva is now expanding into Costa Rica. We moved on to a place called La Fortuna, which is up in the mountains, and this is a volcano that we never saw the top of. It was always in cloud, and this was from the veranda of our hotel. So that was a quick sketch there across the rooftops. This page, this is where I actually managed to use my glue. Oh, and I did use the scissors to cut out that little toucan. All the knives and forks always came in pretty little wrappers, which I rather liked, and Pura Vida, the national saying of Costa Rica, so I added that in. And then we saw our first toucan, which was hugely exciting as we went on a safari float, which was a very gentle boat ride down the river with a guide. I did not paint this while I was in the boat for very obvious reasons. Moved on to a place called Monteverde. I stuck in a beer label because that's the beer I drank, and they had the most amazing, beautiful hanging flowers that were blue. I'm guessing part of the banana family. I have no idea. So I sketched those. We went on a night walk and saw a glow-in-the-dark scorpion. So that was done from a photo. Whereas, say, the volcano or the flowers on the previous page were done from life. But again, you're in the middle of a jungle in the dark and looking at a glow-in-the-dark scorpion. You're not going to sketch from life. Sorry. We moved on to a place called Quepos, Manuel Antonio National Park, and we found a very nice little eatery by the beach, which was based in an old yellow American school bus. And I sat and sketched that while we were having a fruit smoothie or something. And again, that was the thing in Costa Rica. People were really surprised to see you drawing. The waiter was like, "Oh, can I take a photo?" Oh, yeah, if you want to. Oh yeah, and he took a photo and showed his mates, and it was really sweet. So the joy of sketching while you're on holiday, just like that conversation with the lady in the cafe about gold paint, is that you connect with real people as a human being. And say my Spanish isn't brilliant, but we kind of got there, and you know, that was kind of nice. So this chap, this iguana, was at least a metre long, I guess, and just came up to the pool to have a little chat with us, which was rather lovely. This one, I used the 0.88 pens, and I'll show you how I did that in a moment. And the lovely thing is that you can get tones out of these pens just by adding water, and you can then add colour if you want to. We moved back to San Jose before going off again, and the National Theatre, the coffee shop I was talking about, is just about here. Is a beautiful building, and it was great fun to sit and sketch that. The way I select my subjects, obviously something like the iguana, well, actually it came to me, which was great. So I tend to select subjects by, is there a comfy bench? Is it in the shade? Is there something I can draw? Rather than thinking, oh, that's a beautiful building. Oh no, it's really hot and I'm going to have to stand up and be uncomfortable. This is in San Jose, and it just made me laugh. It was a wonderful bakery with the most lurid, huge cakes possible, and families would be coming in trying to decide what birthday cake they were going to have, or special celebration cake, and then they'd go off with a lovely cardboard box and carrying it so proudly, and they were just so pretty. Love those. This so is the Legislative Assembly, and it was one of those hideous brutalist buildings, and it hardly had any windows. It looked like the sort of building from, I don't know, 1984, the building you went into and never came out of again. I did rather offend our lovely guide Cesar, and just in case Cesar happens to be watching this, I'm sorry, because I did say how ugly I thought some of the buildings were, and I think he took it quite personally, but they were. Anyway, so I did draw it to make myself feel less guilty. This is the central cathedral, which of course is again more classical style. And this is one of the reasons why I was glad to have taken these marker pens, because I could mark in sort of the distant buildings and get a feeling of some of the rest of the city going on whilst using the waterproof pens on the actual subject. San Jose, we moved off to Tortuguero, Tortuguero, I should say, which is one of the other national parks. And we were staying in this very pleasant, well, we were staying in cabins, and this was sort of central area. So I did that. One of the highlights, I was so excited. I hadn't seen any poison dart frogs where we were before, and the colourful frogs of Costa Rica are gorgeous. It was the wrong season, but I did ask, oh, was there anywhere I could see frogs? And actually, just by the cabins, there was a place you sometimes saw them. So this is a red-eyed tree frog, and he was gorgeous. Only about that size, teeny. We saw lots more toucans. So this is a yellow-throated toucan. No, it isn't. Absolute lie. It is a keel. I've written it down. Keel-billed toucan. So they're the ones with the rainbow. They've all got yellow throats. Sorry, that was me being stupid. That is a yellow-throated toucan. While I was looking for that little tree frog, I heard this scuttling amongst the undergrowth and could see little movements going down burrows. I was like, oh God, are those spiders? Because tarantulas, we did see lots of tarantulas. We saw a red-kneed tarantula and a Hoffman's tarantula, and they are, hefty things, and they live in burrows. But I managed to catch sight of them, and they were blue land crabs. So luckily, I mean, I'm not squeamish about spiders, but you wouldn't want to be in the dark in the undergrowth looking for frogs and encounter spiders, would you? So, and I just wrote all the different animals we saw. We flew off to Mexico to break our journey up home, and we were staying very close to the Angel of Independence. So that was a quick sketch there, literally outside our hotel. So Mexico City is home to the most amazingly world-class museums, and we went to the Anthropology Museum, which is in Chapultepec Park. They had some of the codices, which are the books of the Mexica people, or we call them Aztecs. And it was wonderful because they were, in fact, accordion books just like this, except theirs were made out of deer skin, prepared with lime, and they didn't have an alphabet based writing system. They used little hieroglyphs, and they were probably, they weren't even an inch tall, 2 centimeters tall. They were tiny, so they were just covered with these little drawings that told the story of what's going on, and I was so taken with these. So I drew some considerably larger. Mexico City and its surroundings are just heaving with beautiful buildings. So I thoroughly enjoyed drawing some of them. And at this point, again, it is there somewhere comfy to sit? Is it in the shade? Probably more churches than I would have normally chosen, but that's where the benches were. Museum called the Museo de Artes Populares, so folk art, and Mexico is heaving with amazing folk arts, ceramics, papier-mâché, wood carving, just so colourful and lively and vibrant. So I did this page while I was in the museum, just quick outlines of these masks, added colour later when I had the time. This is another church. Again, it had a bench in the shade. And then this is my last page. Can you believe it? It went so quickly. And we went outside of Mexico City to a place called Teotihuacan, which is an amazing archaeological site with huge pyramids, and down the centre there is the Avenue of the Dead. We were on the bus waiting to go. I wasn't really happy with the sketch because it was just very quick, and I had to be quick because it was so hot and there was no shade and nowhere to sit. And then as we were looking, I could see the pyramid in the distance, and in front of me there were all these amazing cacti, and I was like, haha, that's what I can add in. So I added in all the cactuses, and I really liked that picture because it sums up what was going on. So that is a quick flick through And that is my entire book. I really didn't think I'd fill it because I made such a big book. But in fact, there is a secret. Let's go round the back. First of all, show you, I made one addition to the back of this, which was to stick the last 2 pages together and make a little pocket, because I do like to occasionally save things and put in. I used my glue stick with various receipts and bits and bobs to stick on some random bits of paper, because I thought I would do some urban sketches on top of these to do a bit of mixed media. Here, prepared those, and I didn't. So I've just got those stuck on the back. Never mind. I have had to do some running repairs to my concertina sketchbook. So usually when I make a sketchbook, I bend over a bit of the last page and stick it together. Here, I thought, oh, I'll just use some washi tape and tape the pages together, and it fell apart. Our last day in Mexico City, and I was Googling, where should we go? Last day is always hard. You check out of your hotel, you put your luggage in storage. Flight wasn't till 11 o'clock at night. What do you do with your day? And I was Google. And Mexico City Zoo in Chapultepec Park has the last giant panda in Latin America. Now, I have a bit of a love-hate relationship with zoos. A good zoo that does research, conservation, education, the animals are kept in really good enclosures, but I've never seen a panda, and there aren't any pandas in the UK at all. Oh, I really want to see a panda. So we went, and it was a surprisingly nice zoo. Now, the panda actually belongs to Mexico because mostly the Chinese government lends pandas out. They retain ownership. But this is the granddaughter of a couple of pandas given to Mexico. She is 34 years old, which is old in panda terms. We got there and she was on this sort of hammock affair, hanging off the side like this, just not moving. And we're like, oh my goodness, she's died. She's not moving. Oh my Lord. And then she scratched and sniffed and rolled over, and we were very, very relieved. So I sat and sketched, and again I used this as a very, so good for very quick sketches of animals, because you can do the outline and then just put water over it to give some tone. And then I spent the rest of that morning sketching the other animals, so the crane, and we've got the lemurs, lions. This was a siamang, which I'd never come across. This is a couple of monkeys cuddled up, a wonderful jaguar. Oh, bisons. Oh, we went back and saw the panda again, and bisons. So that's the end of my sketches. Just would love to show you a couple of things I accumulated on the way. When we were at Teotihuacan, there was someone demonstrating what colours the Mexica people would have used to paint with. So we had lapis lazuli ground up with and then added with water. This was cochineal, which is from beetles. This was marigold to produce the yellow, and it was, the green came from a leaf of the tobacco family. And then I got given that, and I thought that was rather lovely to think of these ancient pigments. Here I was doing my little sketches. We also went, let me open this up carefully, to a silversmithing workshop, just so you can see it. And the gentleman there, Raphael, there you go. This was his silversmithing workshop. He was demonstrating his engraving techniques. This is aluminium, not silver. And yeah, just showed how he engraved, and then he gave that to me, which was very nice. And then we went to a craft workshop that also sold tequila and mezcal and stuff, and the lady was showing us how they use this particular plant to make the drinks, but they also use it for the fibres for weaving, and even the spike from the plant as a sewing needle. So I popped that into my sketchbook, into my very handy little pocket, And that is my souvenir of our trip to Costa Rica and Mexico. Let me show you some of those techniques. So when I'm sketching from life in, say, a museum like these ones, or like, where are they? Those masks. Ah, there they are. I tend to use very simple outline and on the whole a sort of continuous line drawing. Say I was standing in front of a display case and I was doing one of those frog sculptures that I was so taken with. I would use something like this ballpoint pen. It's waterproof, so I know I can put colour over it. But I might do a fairly continuous line because I'm needing to do this quickly, partly because I'm uncomfortable, nowhere to sit in a museum. I need to do it quickly so the guards don't think I'm planning a hoist, and I need to do it quickly so that my companion doesn't get bored, all those sorts of things. Well, I would do this sort of continuous line. It's a lovely flow to your drawing, and we don't have to be incredibly accurate. I never bother with a pencil underdrawing. You're more committed if you go straight in with pen. It makes you think about what you're doing, and if you get a line wrong, well, just put in the right one, it doesn't matter. And it's a really nice quick way of capturing that information. So I might have been standing in front of a display case and I've captured that little frog ornament. I can then go on, and decide that I'm going to do one of those circle ornaments, because I think they were used as sort of lip plates and earrings, and you might decide that you're going to capture one of those. And actually, does it need to be more than that? If that was what it was like, maybe I might sort of put in some of the markings so I'd remember that they were around the side, and then later on that evening when I get back to the hotel, or we're sitting down for a drink or having lunch, whatever, I could fill in the rest like this. I might actually tidy up and put in a little more detail if that's what it needed, say like this. And I'd have my drawing. And then I use the water brush. So water brush, you've got water in the handle, and to release it you just squeeze and it comes out of the bristles. It doesn't come to a great point, you wouldn't want to do a whole painting with it, but you can use it to release the colour. And there, look, I've got some beautiful gold that I could do there, and I might grab my other one and put in a little bit of orange. That would be rather nice to really enrich and mix with the gold. So that's why I love these Viviva colour sheets for travelling. They've got a little fold out mixing place if you want to mix, but on the whole I just sort of mix them on the page. And if it's a bit splatty and a bit not perfect, well, do you know what? Life isn't perfect. Life is a bit splatty, and we're travelling, and what this has done is capture that memory of the wonderful museum and all those wonderful designs. And because I've stood and drawn these, they're sort of caught in my memory so much more than if I'd just taken a picture. This is so much nicer. And I had that lovely conversation with the lady in the shop, and she was a watercolour artist and she loved my paints, and could she get them, and all that sort of human contact, which is so much more than taking a photo. Even the most basic and incomplete drawing will bring back so many memories. It doesn't have to be perfect, and that's what I would sort of really encourage you to let go, leave the the need to be perfect at home. You're on holiday, you're enjoying what you're doing. It's a lovely way of capturing that. And a few people have said, well, how long do these things last for? Which is kind of how long is a piece of string, because how big is the painting that you've used? How often do you use it? But if you can see, say, that little bit of gold there, I use that to paint that page, and that's how much it has used. So when it goes matte like that, you've taken all the paint off the page. So I basically used about, well, less than a square centimetre to do that. I like these 0.88 pens because they are a really quick way of capturing a little bit of action. So think about that panda that was just mooching around, and I wanted to capture it from life, not photos and do it later. Maybe I'd do a quick sketch like that before off it wandered. And you might think, well, that is a bit pathetic, Liz, and I might have scribbled in, oh yeah, black ears, it's got that black eye patch, bit of a nose, and then it was sort of black down here. Well, the addition of a bit of water on this pen, the ink moves, and by just putting some water over the top, you actually capture more information and you can make the sketch an awful lot better than you would think from that initial drawing. And what you can do, if you've got something plastic, you could scribble more on ink on there, pick it up, and if, say, you wanted to make this darker without putting actual lines on, you could pick up ink and do it like that as well. Just looking at that, I had the panda. I was, trying to capture the shape of it as it sort of sat hunched up. You might do that continuous line again is a good way of keeping your pen on the page and looking at the animal. And if you do a wrong line, well, just come back and do the right one. And then we had that sort of head coming down there, nose, eye patch, ear. It's got bored, it's decided that it's moving on, and you're left with that sort of sketch, which you think, oh, that's a bit useless, isn't it? But the addition of a bit of water, again, just brings it to life. You can put shadow, you can just bring it to life. We could remember this sketch, put its chubby cheek in, and yeah, it's not going to win prizes for being the best picture in the world, but we have caught a lot of information in 2 seconds flat. And once it's dried, you can either go back on and put more information on top, crisp things up. You might, I don't know, want to put its claws in because they are bears and they have got claws. You might think, oh, has it got a tail? Oh, I didn't get that quite dark enough. So you can always work in layers and just say add more information if the animal decides that it is actually going to stay in the right place for you. I really like this pen as well for sketching buildings. So say one of those churches, or quite baroque, they've got fairly complicated domes, and then of course the cross on top, and they come down in some sort of bell tower maybe. So again, using that continuous line so that I can look at the building and not particularly look at my paper is a good way of doing it. Now, buildings luckily aren't going to get up and move unless we have an earthquake, and we didn't have any of those, I'm delighted to say. But once you've got the gist of things down and the proportions, you could go back in, a little bit of water, and put some shadows in. And actually, you can end up with a really nice atmospheric sketch that captures the piece. Said I put these in at the last moment. I thought, what, 6 lots of greys. These are basically cheap version of Tombow pens. You've got a brush pen, so if you need to put down some tone really quickly, you can do, and they blend. Or you can even go in with your water brush and blend and use that. So say I'd done this and I thought, yeah, I want to be a bit more precise with a few of my shadows, say. I could always go in on top and darken down some of these shadows if I need to. Again, use a bit of plastic, credit cards. Ooh, let me put down some ink and then pick it up with my brush, and you can paint with that as well. That's another way. So if you don't want a line, you can actually use that as an ink source and then pick it up. This is some of the methods I use to try and do sketches while I'm on the go as quick as possible. I'd love to encourage you next time you go on holiday to take a sketchbook with you and to capture your surroundings. No more than half an hour, possibly 20 minutes, possibly 5 minutes. And it's amazing what you'll get done in that week, 2 weeks that you're away. How that will become a really treasured memory that you'll look back on and think, oh yeah, we did that. Or I can feel the warmth of the sun on my back, or I can smell the smells that were going on, or listen to the music that was in the background, because your senses are all heightened when you're drawing.